Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are right now. And I want to just say welcome all of you to another episode of Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life. This podcast is based on the works by Joanna DeAngelis, and we meet weekly to explore what I call this intersection between psychology and spirituality. It's philosophy, it's science, and I call it evangelical Yuri, but I don't know if that's the best term. That religious, morally, moral aspects that these conversations bring to us. Last episode, we discussed something important for all of us, which is ASD, autism spectrum disorder. And I'm truly grateful that we were able to receive some profound insights, right, from our guest speaker on some of the challenges in the home, including how we all need to be able to be prepared to do it to the best of our efforts, to teach respect, patience in how we communicate, and of course, all those moral responsibilities that we inherit and we, depending on our role, we have to fulfill in our homes. Today, we'll continue our conversation, but we're going to pivot to the topic of emotional security. So I'm so happy to have Yuri Castro with me today to talk about this topic. Yuri, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, Marcia. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of those who are listening or watching us.
All right. So, Judy, generally speaking, when we bring up the word home, and for some, it's a rather loaded word, right? So,
Mm.
just thought from your point of view, what does usually come to mind first? Is it a place of comfort or conflict in your experience?
I think both. That's the best answer. I think it's a mix of both comfort or
Mhm.
and conflict for most people out there because family is something that is quote unquote complicated. So we can always
Mhm.
expect a bit of conflict, and also we should expect some comfort. So I think the answer or the gradation of each will depend on whoever you're asking. But I think that's a great question. The two C's, comfort and conflict, and I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. And when I'm thinking right now and I'm thinking to myself, um, I see how for some, and it depends on the period of your life, right? As a youth
Yes.
or teenagers, it may be something different than perhaps at my age. But it is the sense of home as a refuge, right? But at the same time, we can see, and I'm sure you, with your experience, you can see more than I do, home as this place where we project or we mirror the parts of ourselves that I really don't want to see it, right? So, from that perspective, Yuri, Joanna de Angelis reminds us that the family is, and I would say very specifically so, well, home is not only a social necessity, and she used those words, right? And she says it's a divine opportunity. And you say, Marcia, explain more. All right. What does she say? And she's basically telling us that the family where home is intrinsically related is the place where our souls rehearse the lessons of love, also the lessons of patience, forgiveness, and even service. As a mother, especially of young children, right? And I'm talking mother for me, we do have the duty to serve, to prioritize the little human being that is been entrusted to us. And but we can think that, as you said, every relationship, Yuri, every tension, every even I guess sense of care or love or affection,
Yes.
right? It has that spiritual purpose. So the question for all of us to think about it is, do we, and there's a rhetoric question here, do we recognize the lessons behind the experience we've been through in our whole lives, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a great question, Marcia, because
mhm,
I think a lot of the times we may
mhm,
just go through life without reflecting too much on these things, and or without reflecting too much on what am I doing here, what am I doing here with these people, what's my
yeah,
relationship, or perhaps
yeah,
previous relationship, if we consider the immortality of the soul.
correct.
What was my previous relationship with this person? Why are they, like in on my way, or on the way with me, and on this way of regeneration, on this way of
Yeah,
evolution? Because like you said very well, it is, and Joanna says it, and other authors also say it, how it's the family, or like the reincarnation is this singular opportunity. It's a blessing that we receive, and there is a reason why we have the people around us, why we have the people that we are born into, or we end up becoming part of. So it's very important for us to always have that in mind, I think, as we're thinking of the reflections, and as we're thinking of what is it that I need to still, quote unquote, solve with this person, or reconcile with this person. What
yeah,
lessons can I learn from that person? Because we're all in the same boat called Earth. So therefore, I can always learn something from those people, and I can always teach something, and serve them and help them as well.
yeah,
That's my view. I don't know
yeah.
what you think.
No, I love it. I love what you're saying. And I may have mentioned to you before because it's a long, drawn out, but I'm watching a series from Korea. Did I say that to you last time we met?
No? What
No,
series?
it's cute. It's really cute. It's almost for young teenagers or even younger. It's called See Me in My 19th Life,
Oh wow,
right?
no, haven't seen
Yeah,
that. No.
so it's very interesting, very beautiful, well crafted, beautiful cinematography, very slow. But so she remembers this character. She remembers all her lives, but she comes back and she's just in love with this guy from that she was a kid with, and she does everything. I mean, she just stalks him in the new life, the 19th life, right? And they were together in the 18th. Spoiler alert, if you're going to watch it, just close your, just do not listen. But as we're getting to the tail end of the series, Yuri, it's very interesting. She finds out finally after hours and hours of watching the series, when they get together, the guy and the girl, right? And he finally gets convinced that she was the reincarnation of this girl that he was in love with. She remembers her first life. In this
Oh, I was gonna
case,
say the other lives, yeah.
so we're talking about 1,000 years together, right? So she remembers that she killed him, right? And it was right at the moment that when they're about to get together, it comes that memory of her actually, getting a knife and killing him, and he dies in her arms. And I just find it quite interesting because in the multiplicity of lives, when we talk about immortality of the soul, we can see that those that we love today at some point may have been somebody that there was some sort of friction, right? So those encounters are very explicit, and there's a reason for us to in love is conquers all, right? So that's not the movie. I'm just saying when we're talking here, it came to my mind, this little series. But
But
right,
it
but
also has
yeah,
to do with, like you're saying, reincarnation, and how we've been connected
yeah,
somehow, and we
yeah,
have the veil of forgetfulness, so we don't necessarily, thank God,
yeah,
remember everything that we did to those around us, or everything that they did to us. And so when you
yeah,
asked about comfort or conflict, I think a lot of the times the conflict can come from this dormant part of us that
Yes,
understands that
yes,
that person may have done something to us in the past, probably has, or vice
yeah,
versa. And
yeah,
therefore,
yeah,
if you think of people being different and the difference is already creating conflict, let's say in society, imagine now in a place where it's a microcosm of society, as we said in the
yes,
previous
yes.
episode,
Hmm.
and these people have a history together of maybe 18 lives, just like the character from the one you mentioned, 1,000 years
Yeah,
of reincarnations under
yeah,
different roles: father,
yeah,
daughter, son,
yes,
brother, sister,
yes,
mother,
yeah,
wife, husband. So that's why I think there's the comfort, and there's also conflict a lot of the time. Sometimes it's more of one or the other,
yeah.
but we always have to keep in mind that one, there's nobody is mistakenly putting their addresses as far as like
That's a
reincarnation goes.
that's a very important thing. Everyone here, listen to Yuri, right? And I say that, Yuri, because I've seen as kids, right? We say, "I did not ask to be born. I didn't ask to be your child." And Spiritism is very explicit about saying, "Yes, you did. Yes, you, each one of us, you, right? Each one of us have chosen to be exactly where you are, right?
And we are exactly where we need to be. So that's the other
And the
piece.
other side of it, yes, yeah,
Because we
yeah,
can ask for something, but if it's not in line with, with what we need in that moment in our like in our lives as mortal spirits, not
yeah,
necessarily going to get it. But if we're here, it's because we asked, and it's because we are exactly where we need to be with exactly those people that we need to
yeah,
be with. So that
yeah,
that's something that is very important when we're talking about
yeah,
family, about conflict, about comfort, security,
yeah,
emotional security and spiritual growth within this microcosm of the society.
yeah. One little another aspect, and this is just in passing here. At the beginning of the series, the little girl, she was still a girl, right? The father is an alcoholic. The mother leaves because she cannot take a physical abuse, right? The brother is just imitating the father, so it's really difficult. And this little girl, I mean, she was like 7 or 8, and she goes, looks at the camera, and she says, "Mm, "This is gonna be a hard life." And then she says, "Ah, no, I once was born during the war, was much harder." So sometimes having that really, relative view of life may be helpful. But anyways, let's go back to the idea, because I wanted to hear from you. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how uh, the family as a unit, as an institution, perhaps, is this moral and emotional foundation for all of us, right? Can we maybe talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything stems from our relationships, what we're speaking now as a
Mhm.
son, right? As the
Yeah,
son or daughter,
yeah,
everything comes from these early relationships, these early attachments, and there's plenty of research in the field of clinical psychology or developmental psychology, to be more precise, that talks
hmm,
about the importance of these emotional ties and secure ties to family figures, particularly
hmm,
mom and dad and things like that, in the development, in the emotional development of the human being. And the
hmm,
first years of life are very, very critical, very important to focus on those and provide the best environment possible, because that is, as you said very well, the word foundation. That is the foundation
hmm,
of this emotional construction that the individual will have
yeah,
itself, or him or herself. Therefore, as they grow, that's going to come from the family. The same thing with the morals, and the moral foundation is a little later
hmm,
than the emotional, but at the
hmm,
same time, once the child begins to understand, begins to like see what is mommy doing, what is daddy doing, is daddy stealing,
yeah,
is daddy, is mommy lying to daddy, is they start to see the behaviors and mimic. They will mimic them, they will learn them. Doesn't matter what the parents say. you shouldn't
yeah,
you shouldn't do this. They go and they do it. The child will think, oh, okay, so I can do
yeah,
it as well, because my heroes do it. They're my models,
yes,
so I can do it as
yeah.
well.
Mhm. And I'm thinking here, Yuri, because when we think, at least that's how I see it, neuroscience, right, and how it confirms that perhaps those um, can we call it maybe habits, right? Emotional habits, such as empathy or emotional intelligence, right? Empathy, patience, etc. How those are an imprint, as you mentioned, from those heroes and models that we as children see at home, and how they are perhaps also encoded in that repetition, meaning if I am patient once and impatient 900 times, the child will learn impatience, right? And so on and so forth. So it's almost like let's be very careful not to lie about who we are, right? And pretend to be what we're not, but to see that whatever we do, there is that echo, if you will, in that child that is still in development, as you said, that
Yeah,
emotional development.
repetition is key as well. So
Hmm.
as if you wanna
Hmm.
be a good model, just make sure you're doing it consistently and not just once,
Hmm.
once
Hmm.
every year or something like. And it's
On
important as well.
Christmas Eve, right?
Yeah,
Or
just to
whatever.
Christmas, I'll be a good person. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
but it's important to notice that this emotional foundation, or the emotional security that we get from a healthy home environment. This
Hmm.
emotional foundation and development is extremely important. It's even we can even see that in foster care children. So
Yeah.
children who go through the foster care system in the United States here,
Mm.
we can actually see that emotional, and there's studies that have done that, emotional intelligence is a better predictor of happiness and success in life afterwards than IQ. So they could be
Mhm.
as smart as it can be. If
Mhm.
they are emotionally intelligent, meaning knowing their emotions, knowing how to read other people's emotions, processing those emotions
Mhm.
themselves, it's a better predictor of success and happiness later on in life than
Yeah.
IQ. Just being extremely smart.
Yeah. And you're saying something, we can see that even with foster care children. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about it, Yuri, in terms of
Yeah.
that
So.
emotional
Mhm.
security?
So these are children, and the foster care children is a great example because these are children who grow up in these foster care environments here in the United States.
So
There's actually
transient,
a
right?
clean,
Transient from
yes,
one to the other. Yeah.
it's actually a research that I'm an author of, but
Ah, awesome.
it's
Yeah.
why that's why like my mind went there, because
Yeah.
it's such an interesting piece because it's a transient environment with with their role models or people that sometimes may be there for 6 months and then leave, which are the workers
Mhm.
of these environments. So
Yeah.
emotionally speaking, they try to grasp at whatever role model they can find, and they learn these things from all the other children that are there and also all the other adults that are working there, which is very, like you said very well, very transient, because sometimes they may
Mhm.
have the little brother that they like, that the brother leaves because it's adopted, or the worker
Yeah.
leaves. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of instability, if we think of emotional attachment, in those children, and then we still
Mhm.
see that those who develop emotionally, they tend to do better as when they become alumni, meaning when they leave the foster care
Yeah.
system, than
Yeah.
those who are just extremely smart but did not understand emotions or had empathy and things like that, as you said.
Yeah. And I know a family that adopted two kids. Actually, they were already parents of four, and the mother adopted two additional kids, Yuri. And the first of the two was a child that they think he was already 3 years old with the body of a 9 month old. So you can start thinking of malnutrition, etc., right? From the orphanage. And this mother was really having great challenges because the child cried and cried and cried for hours at a time, and it took years until she could establish a bond. And to my mind, and I mentioned this to her, by the way, the child is well, the family's together, and the child is now, I believe, in college, doing extremely well, a young athlete. He's got it. But it was so difficult for that family because this little child disrupted everything in the family, but they were firm in providing a space of love and care and consistency, as you mentioned, in ensuring that child felt held, felt there. And I often wonder, Yuri, I have no basis to say that, but I often wondered at the time when she was talking about this to me, if the child was somehow pushing the new parents because, baby as he was, he had been abandoned too many times. I don't know. So it was a difficult time for this family, right?
Oh man, I'm glad the
Yeah.
kid is doing good. They're
Oh,
both doing good.
extremely well. Good looking. He's awesome. Really, I've seen photos of him like, yeah, this is
Nice.
good.
That's a good. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked about the family relationships are not by accident, including foster families,
Yeah.
including adopted children in their adopted families. It's very interesting. There's a lot from a spiritual perspective that we see that. Is there anything else maybe that you can add about this intentional experience that is designed for all that is
Mm-hmm.
part of the family unit to grow
Yeah, and
individually but also collectively?
and that's why in my first answer when I of today I
Mhm.
mentioned the family we're born into or the family we become a part of, because a lot of the
Yeah,
times
yeah.
we may not be born by blood into a family, but we definitely become a part of it, and it's still it still matters the same. So what
Mm-hmm.
matters is how you're created and to develop these emotional
Mm-hmm.
attachments and these emotional bonds, even if the person is adopted, it's still there's still
Mm-hmm.
a purpose behind that, because again,
Yeah,
God is infinitely good and fair and loving and merciful. So if these
yeah,
things are happening, there must be for a reason, out of love, even if it seems
yeah,
that there's first at first there is suffering. We don't know the story or the backstory,
yeah.
we can say, of that specific
Yes.
spirit that
Yeah,
was in a foster care home but now has found a family. Who knows what has happened in the past, you know?
yeah,
So it's very important to keep in mind that as these families form, the adopted ones, the biological ones, doesn't matter. As the family unit will be this microcosm, as the other authors say, of redemptive experiences. Doesn't matter
mhm,
if you're born into or not. If you're born into, is just a more direct way, I guess that's how I see it, than an
mm,
indirect way. Like you took a side road, but you still ended up in that same family on the main road
yeah,
versus you're already traveling in that road.
yeah,
But at the same time, everybody is on that same road as far as family members and marching
yeah,
towards progress together, you know?
yeah, yeah. I was at listening to a a discussion just yesterday, and the title of that discussion, it was a call to action, and it was very interesting, because that that it is of course available on YouTube, but that summary of that was that we love our spouse, we love our children, we love our family members, and the call to action was to broaden, right? Once we already learned how to love, let's broaden our love towards the other. And of course, we can speak about this for hours. To me, it's always the definition of who's the other that comes back to Jesus, right? The other is your neighbor, the other is Him, Jesus, the other is anyone outside of you. But as I'm here talking to you, I'm thinking, Perhaps not. Perhaps the call to action is let's start with our family, right? Let's start doing those things to our families so that this laboratory, if you will, of love and care or responsibility can then be scaled to all others, right?
Yes, and it makes me think too of, Allan Kardec in the Gospel According to Spiritism, for instance, where he talks about honoring your father and your mother, like the commandment,
Yeah,
saying how can you go and try to honor everybody else but not honor your parents, but not
correct. Yeah,
provide them with that. So like
yeah,
we all everything basically starts there. It starts in the home, and from the home we expand from the outside, from the outer society and like other
yeah,
people as well. But at the same
yeah.
time, how can we try to be loving to some my neighbor if I don't love my parents or my sons or my wife, or if I'm a tyrant at home but I'm very nice outside of the home? So like
There we go.
how
Yeah,
is that, applying, or
yeah,
these teachings, how is that getting any better on my day to day? It's not, because we must
yeah,
start within these microcosm, again this word, this microcosm of redemptive experiences, that is the home, the
yes,
family.
yeah, yeah. I love what you said. There are so many stories, fiction or not, but there's stories about exemplary individuals, let's say at work or even the places of faith, right? That come home and they're tyrants. They are terrible people in the home, and that's almost uh, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde idea of different personalities is difficult to even imagine, but it happens quite a lot. And I think what we're talking about here is that we should be all aligned. We should be authentic to who you
Yes.
are. And if you are Mr. Hyde, let's say, let's look for support and help so that you can continuously be Dr. Jekyll. And this is, of course, a judgment call, but I'm just saying, let us all be aligned to our authentic selves all the time. Right?
And it's easy to understand too, Marcy, if you think about it just real quick, why some people might be tyrants in the home, but like
Mm.
mistreat people in the home, but not those are outside. Because again, it's very easy for me to be charitable with a stranger, to lend a shoulder to
Yeah,
somebody that I never met, or somebody who has some
yeah,
sympathy for me for whatever reason, striking my ego. I'm
yeah.
like, oh yeah, let me help you. But the person that's with me, that I've had, and I want to use the same example, 18 different reincarnations with, that
Yes,
is harder, because there's almost like this
yeah,
innate, antagonistic feeling that arises. So it
yeah,
becomes way harder for
yeah,
me to be loving and be charitable with the person that's sleeping on the same bed as me, or living under the same roof a lot of
yeah,
the times, than the
yeah.
person outside who has nothing to do with me, has no previous history.
Yeah, actually, I was trying to remember a quote by Charles Bukowski, right, the writer, that talking about exactly what you said. It's so much easier to treat you nicely if I don't know you, because when I know you with all the flaws and all the incoherent I'm here today and I'm not there, etc., that baggage that we all bring in the family, it may be the reason why it's much easier to be nice or charitable to the unknown, right?
And
But it is interesting, as you said, it's a laboratory, and it's where we need to learn to learn and love, right? And as we mentioned before, as intentional spiritual experience, meaning our relationships in the home are not random, they're not accidental, they have been carefully designed to help us grow, right? So from that perspective, we need to start to view. I don't know, Yuri, I don't know if what you think, but maybe push ourselves or move ourselves at a distance from that moment that we're going through to kind of understand better, perhaps, why is this happening to me, right?
Yeah, and also I always say this, before trying to fix the world and like going outside and trying to do all these a million charitable things, look in the home. What are you doing
Yeah,
everything that you can? Are you truly
yeah,
being your best self in the home first?
yes. It's the
If
biggest
that's a
mission, right?
yes, then you can expand and try to do outside, because otherwise
Yeah,
you're going to be failing a mission here, because I can be helping a lot of people out there, but if I'm mistreating my own sons, my wife, my parents, like
yeah,
how am I progressing? What am I doing?
yeah,
I'm just acquiring new debts for a
yeah,
new life, for another reincarnation, for the 20th reincarnation, to get back to the with that person again on a different role, and have to go through all these things again. The
yeah,
opportunity of the time is something that, once it passes, it passes. We must make the best of what we have right now. That
yes.
includes the people that we're with right now.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I I I think it's important for us to also think in terms of the balance between love, affection, and discipline, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really critical. Maybe we can talk more about it, Yuri, where discipline without love becomes, I don't know, an authoritarian, tyrannical
Yes.
way of treating. But love without discipline may not prepare our children, ourselves, to be successful in life. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the idea, I love that you brought that, because it's like love with discipline, and we must be able to be disciplined, and also those who are parents to discipline the children, but always with love and with honesty, because if we're just disciplinarians and we don't do that with love, with honesty, we're authoritarian. We're
Yeah,
just dictators.
yeah,
But if we just let everything flow through, no discipline whatsoever, that can become subservience as well, and that can create children who don't know that the world
hmm,
has limits, that
yeah,
children who don't know that there are rules they must obey, there are expectations they must meet from societal norms. So
hmm,
I'm citing like the two ends of the spectrum, to
sure,
understand that there must be discipline out of love. There must be
yeah,
discipline, because we, as and I'm talking about as parents, in the role of a
mm,
father now, we
hmm,
must teach them discipline in the best way that we can, with honesty and with love, not just let everything happen and spoil them, and don't give them any consequences and things like that.
yeah. And it's funny if you think about it. Both of us were born in a different country and are have been transplanted for different reasons to a different country, right? And one way that is quite interesting, because I don't know if you went through the same thing, but for me, it is the question of understanding different human laws, right? It's human, but different laws, different systems, culturally accepted systems of obedience and respect for the collective, that it's starkly different from what I was raised. But having those two together makes you expand on that idea that it's important to have discipline. It's important to, I think, to learn to respect. The word that comes to my mind is respect, right? Understanding there are rules that may not be really something that you accepted, perhaps because culturally speaking you never had that rule, but there is a reason behind all of it. One of the first things that I saw that was very interesting to me, and it's a silly uh, example, but I'm going to give it anyways. But the first thing that I saw was, uh, wait, I can go to a gas station, pump my own gas, and then pay? Who does
Yeah.
it without just leaving? Just little things like that. There was a stark contrast. But trust, right? Trust and discipline leads to in terms of, I'm talking about society, a much faster society, because you don't have to wait in line for another person to pump your gas. You can just keep going and go much faster, right?
Yeah, and as we are talking about, family and children again, if you don't teach them discipline or the importance of discipline or respecting family values and things like that,
Mhm.
you're going to be raising them to be unsuccessful out there, because the
Yeah,
society is not going to forgive, the other
yeah,
people are not going to forgive, their
yeah,
bosses are not going to forgive, their
yeah,
colleagues, the
yeah,
schoolmates are not going to forgive, the teachers are not going to forgive. So
yeah,
how are you, how is there's no life without discipline. We must
yeah,
coexist, and in order to do that, we must
yeah,
follow certain rules. And
yeah,
having the
yeah,
discipline, meaning teaching our children the rules, teaching our teenagers the rules, to follow
yeah,
that, even if they become very upset, it's
yeah,
extremely important, because they must learn to follow those and deal with frustrations of, hey, sometimes you're not gonna like what it is, but
yeah.
you still have to do it anyways.
Yeah, yeah. And so we're talking about the discipline that leads to trust, collectively speaking. But let's think perhaps about trust, transparency, and communication in the family. Yuri, we see that perhaps that when trust and loyalty means in the home it would means I'm here. Let's say I'm a teenager, right? And I want to experiment, but there are norms, and the norms may be you don't go out without telling me where you are, or there is a curfew, you have to be back by then, etc., right? So when trust and loyalty are not present, we start to see that stable foundation that the family provides start to crack and destabilize. So any thoughts on how we can perhaps cultivate that authentic sense of trust within a family?
Well, Joanna talks about honest communication. So, honest
Okay.
dialogue, honest
Yeah.
communication. So, that is, I think, a very key element in this
Mm,
discussion, Marcia, where
mm,
we are trying to help, foster this harmony, but also help our children, our teenagers understand how things work. Because if we just, like I said, if we just start setting discipline and rules and this and that, you must obey because I'm telling you. So it's gonna be a point where that doesn't, and very quick, that point's gonna come very fast, by the way, where it's not
mhm.
gonna fly. We need to be able to understand instead of being impatient and just saying, because I said so, because I'm your father. Trying to explain to them, and having the patience to teach them why it's important for you to go to sleep at a certain time, why it's important for you
Yeah.
to do your homework, to brush your teeth, and not
Yeah.
just saying because I told you so, because
Yeah.
at some point that's not gonna fly. They're gonna question, and if we don't question, I mean, if they don't question you, they're
Yeah.
gonna go outside and experiment. They're gonna try,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
just as I'm thinking teenagers now, so like not
Yeah.
having that open channel of communication, which is something that's very important, an open channel of communication where
Yeah.
honest conversations can flow. I think that's one of
Yeah.
the key elements here. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's super important, right? I if I reference the Bible, right, where Matthew says, "Let your yes be yes," right? I keep thinking that it's all about that communication with vulnerability, right? I'm
Oh
not
yes.
at some point. My child, and we're talking about a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, I was your superhero. Right now my teenage child, right, you're becoming an adult, so let's be vulnerable, but let's be very transparent in our communication. And I keep thinking that honest emotional expression, even I am angry, I am disappointed, I right, all the things that you as a parent are expressing with your more difficult child, let's say, that ability to bring forth should be able to reduce stress, right? And also increase that sense of empathy between you and your child. And so I think spiritually, I could imagine that transparency is truth in action. Like
Oh
charity
yeah,
is love in action, right? Transparency, is spiritually speaking, is truth in action. What are your thoughts?
I love that. Transparency is truth in action, and we must be transparent and understand that we're also flawed, we're also vulnerable. Our children will see that even if we try to hide, and it's best that it
Mm,
comes from us, saying like, "Hey,
yeah,
I'm sad right now, or I'm anxious, I'm afraid of
yeah,
this, or I'm afraid
yeah.
of that." So like having that communication with them is
Hmm.
much better to foster the what we were talking about before, the emotional development, the emotional intelligence of our children or of our teenager, having that honest channel of communication, because it goes both ways. Once they don't
Hmm.
trust you, or they don't think you trust them, they're not going to trust you, and then they're not
Yeah,
going to bring you their problems,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden
Hmm.
you have to deal with a much bigger issue because they weren't honest with you from the start, because they grew
Yeah.
up seeing you being dishonest with them.
Yeah, and it's in that moral compass of ours that it's hard to say, oh, this is right. This is how to no. This is all embedded in how we understand what life is all about. Then those pockets of dishonesty is perfectly okay. And we didn't know any better, right? Sometimes. But, anyways, let's pretend now, let's pivot to perhaps I only have time for one more discussion here, Yuri, is maybe thinking about the black sheep of our families. And I think every family has one. And those are the ones that rebel, those are the ones that are just difficult. And how can we deal with that family member who is a disruptor, right? It's everybody's okay, but there's this one for whatever reason, for different reasons, right? Are there those disruptors? How can we deal with them? What are your thoughts?
Love, love them for
Mm,
understanding that they are also flawed as we are. They also deserve love and compassion. They also deserve the attention. They
mhm.
probably have their reasons. We don't know what we did last, previous
Yeah,
reincarnations, much less what the other person did.
yeah,
We don't know what struggles they're going through, but it's obvious and evident that if they are on the way with us, we have a
mhm.
role to play there. That's the
Yeah,
main
yeah,
thing I think people need to
yeah,
realize. If
yeah.
if they are, doesn't matter if it's my brother, my cousin, my dad, my mom, my son, whoever that may be, if they are on their way with me, means I have something that I can do for them and I should do for them.
Yeah. I remember somebody in my family, the black sheep, the black sheep, and it turned out to, with as an older person, turned out to be the most compassionate, giving, generous, almost the glue of the entire family. So it's an
Get
interesting
that?
point, right? We don't know what is the pain point that that spirit is suffering as a child, as a young adult, etc. Right? And it can be a trauma, it can be phobias, it can be some, shall I call it, karmic bonds of the past. But love is the answer, right?
Love is always the answer, and if we turn our if we turn
Yeah,
them away, or if we don't help them, even though they're there in our
yeah,
family,
yeah,
how can we say that we did everything that we could? How can we
yeah,
actually, say that we helped everyone that we could? Because we didn't, and we always have responsibility. I think, Marcia, we always have something that we can do for those
yeah,
people, understanding as well, with a
yeah,
compassionate look that they have their own struggles, and
yeah.
if I turn away from them, what I'm doing is I'm judging them, because I'm saying you're not
Yes,
good enough, you don't deserve my attention, so I'm just gonna turn it somewhere else, and you do you, I do me. Then
yeah,
what? How can I
yeah.
say I was a good Christian? How can I say I
Absolutely. It
was a
goes
good
back all
person?
the way to that, right? To how can I judge myself? I was
Yeah.
not what I was called for. Socrates, I believe he said that to no one errs willingly, right? Which means I may make a mistake, but it's out of lack of awareness or ignorance or even a pain point that I carry with me, not intentional. And I truly believe that in all of our ideas, and I think especially regarding divorce, right? No one willingly sets their lives to say,
Yeah.
right? You say, I want to marry. No, I want to get divorced. No.
No, nobody
This
says I
is,
want to marry because I know I'm gonna get divorced in 10 years, and it's gonna
yeah,
be an emotional
yes,
wreck and
yes,
financial wreck. Nobody does
yeah.
that. It's
No. And I think the same way, right? I don't wake up say, I'm gonna really upset Yuri or
yes,
whomever, right? No, we may and we do often, but it's out of our um, imperfections, right? We're still evolving, and we have many ways that we commit blunders and mistaken choices, etc., etc. So we also need to forgive and forgive ourselves and be compassionate, right, Yuri? Compassion really is one tool to perhaps regulate our emotional and spiritual imbalances, right?
absolutely compassion,
Yeah,
because it stems from love. Again, everything goes
yeah,
back to love. So
yeah,
having that compassionate look to that person, and thinking they're the quote unquote black sheep. They're
yeah,
struggling. They don't like to struggle. They don't like being unhappy. They don't like being
yeah,
like in living in revolt. They're struggling
yes,
for a reason. Can I help them? If so, how?
yeah,
And then
yeah,
just help them. That's why something I think Spiritism bring, which is this sense of responsibility. Now we know.
yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah.
we know. So now there's no way for us to say, "Hey, I didn't know that we could have had other lives, and this person is going through this issue." No, now we know. So we must do something with that knowledge.
Absolutely. So, Yuri, I keep thinking that every home, right? You talked about the microcosm, right? That it's a miniature society. It's the mini social environment. So every gesture of love within that family unit really contributes to how the entire world becomes better, right? So I would just say for all of us, let us observe at a minimum, right? That's maybe this week. Let's observe, how is my home? How is that?
Yeah.
If I had a barometer of the emotional climate, are we a 0? Are we a 10 out of 10? Where are we? And I would say let's pick one small thing that I can do to put that barometer higher than what it sits right now. Is it an apology? Is it just being gentle with our words? Is it a moment that you just come here? Let's sit down. Let's, I don't know, eat popcorn, watch a movie together, whatever, right? Let us think about what can I do specifically to
Yes.
enhance that environment. And finally, right, let us use all the tools. And Joanna de Angelis is awesome. She gives us an entire toolkit for how to enhance our home life. Starts with prayer, meditation, visualization, right? There's a as needed therapy as well.
Yeah.
But before we close, what are your thoughts before we say goodbye today?
I think the sense of responsibility and understanding that, emotional security, spiritual growth, all those things begin in the
Yeah,
family. It is the solid foundation of the
yeah,
building of life, of the building of, the soul. So we must definitely pay more attention to our role in this
yeah,
foundation.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, So, right, she Joanna teaches so many good things, and I'd say some key ideas that she brings to us is let's guide, as you said, with love, with respect, with affection, and balance, discipline. We talked about it today, and remember that. We all play a part in an emotional presence, right? And contributing to that foundational emotional security, and most importantly, joy. And let us have a
Yes.
room, an environment for joy, right? Of laughter or of a happiness. And we also talked about trust, openness, dialogues. They will ensure and preserve harmony and prevent conflicts from festering, if you will. So let us all remember finally that every family member, even the most difficult one, plays a role in our spiritual growth and development. So, with that, I just want to say thank you so much, Yuri. What a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, everyone who's here with us today. And if this is the first time you're listening to a program, always remember the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis, and we hope this discussion has helped you better understand your family. And if you are the black sheep, right, what and how you contribute to the family growth. I'm just kidding here, everyone. But I would also give thanks to all of our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil, the Brazilian arm of the Global Medical Spiritist Association. Yuri, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. So long.
Thank you. See you next time.